Hello, and welcome back to the Big Bad Bench. I'm John, aka Big Bad Biologist, and today we're going to be going through my Dream P3 build. I started it a couple days ago as part of GPU June, and I made a little bit of progress, but there's still a lot of work to do. So let's sort of review what was going on here in this system. So this is an Asus P2B/D, and this system originally really only supported 100 megahertz frontside bus CPUs, but I got a pair of 1.26 Tualatin CPUs, and I wanted to run them on this system. I have a pair of PowerLeap P3/SMP socket adapters that allow use of Tualatin CPUs into these kinds of motherboards. But the motherboard required a little bit of a modification. In order to support 100 megahertz or 133 megahertz frontside bus. And so during my last stream, I sort of screwed up some of the soldering, and I lost a solder pad, but I got all that resolved. But I found some additional issues along the way, and so let me show you something to start off with here. So let's boot this thing up real quick. I don't have anything attached. I just want to show it booting up. And you might notice, so over here is the jumper that should be present for selecting the front side bus between 100 and 133, and that was the jumper that I needed to add for the mod to work. And so if we look here, we have our Pentium 3 at 950 megahertz, which is the same thing that we got before I started all this mess. But what I did was I connected a jumper wire to it, to a little switch here. And basically this is just a turbo switch from an old AT case, and it's just a 2-position switch. And so basically when the switch is in one position, the jumper's in one slot in one position, and when I change the switch, it goes to the other position. So how it was just configured there, it's set for 100 megahertz frontside bus. And so now, click it on. Oh, actually, we don't see anything right now. That's one of the issues I wanted to talk about. So, one of the problems with the BX chipset, and part of the reason for this mod was to make the PCI bus work properly. And I had assumed that the AGP bus would be based off of a multiplier of the PCI bus. Well, and so when this system was configured originally, without the modification that we did, the PCI bus would be way out of spec. I think it's like 44 megahertz, and it's supposed to be 33 megahertz. And so the AGP bus is supposed to be 66 megahertz. Well, the modification doesn't do anything for the AGP bus, unfortunately. And so what happens there is that the AGP bus is now overclocked, and it winds up, so for the BX chipset, you could have a 2/3 multiplier or divider for the AGP bus from the 100 megahertz frontside bus. It's either one, the multiplier would be 1 if you had a 66 megahertz frontside bus CPU, or a 2/3 divider if you had a 100 megahertz CPU or 100 megahertz frontside bus CPU. Well, so we're using the 100 or the 2/3 divider with the 133 frontside bus. So what that means is our AGP bus is around 88 megahertz, and a lot of video cards apparently don't like 88 megahertz. And so what I had to do was find some motherboards that did, or some graphics cards that did. So here, beep. this is an nVidia Quadro FX1000, and you can see we've got our 1.266, so that's our 133 frontside bus configured, and we're going. And so basically, last video I had a GeForce 4 Ti 4600 as my video card, and that kind of works, but get a lot of texture corruption. So that's not a great video card to use, and so I did a lot of testing over the last few days, and this Quadro works like a champ, even with that overclocked AGP bus. So what we're going to do is build the system around this motherboard and this Quadro, sort of a process of elimination. We got to use what we can. So as I disassemble this little pile and get the case, I want to talk about some other stuff. So one of the other problems that popped up is that when I got the 133 frontside bus going, the RAM wouldn't work. And so, from my last thing, there was 4 256 meg sticks of RAM, and it was fine in that configuration. But as soon as we went up to the 133 frontside bus, we were having all kinds of issues. Some of the sticks would just randomly not be recognized. Some would get recognized at half capacity. And so I had to go through and find some different sticks of RAM that worked, sort of. And so I had some of this King Max stuff, which you can kind of see here. So this is PC 150, and it worked great. But this is only 128 meg sticks. And since I think I'm primarily going to be running XP on this thing, I wanted to have a gigabyte of RAM. So one of the other things I found while going through those websites that I linked in the last stream, the authors suggested doing a modification on the voltage regulator for changing the memory power. And so PC 133 RAM should be at 3.3 volts. And basically when I checked, it was like 3.15, 3.2 volts. And so basically you pull off a resistor, and you can see there's a regular old resistor there instead of a surface mount. Pull a resistor off, replace it with a different value, and now we're at 3.4 volts for the RAM, and that generally fixes everything. Apparently the traces between the RAM and the chipset are extra long in this system, and that causes issues. So let's start off with the case, and let me show you what case I'm using here. So this is a modern Lian Li case. Got a nice aluminum front panel. Nothing too garish. There is an RGB strip in the front, but it has a glass side panel, and that glass side panel is really what I wanted for this computer. If you're gonna have, sorry, that's probably a little loud. If you're gonna have a motherboard like the Asus P2B-D, you really want to show it off. So I decided I'm going to go with a modern case on this build. I'm sure that there's some people that wouldn't agree with that decision. But I think it's gonna look good once I'm done. So let's get some screws. This really isn't an ideal thing to try to stream, but hopefully we'll get through this part pretty quickly. And I'm running this power supply in the down configuration. There's not much air gap above there in this little chamber that the power supply sits in, so I'm gonna leave it down. This computer's not gonna be sitting on carpet, so it's fine to have it in that down configuration. The other decision that I think people might have issues with is that I'm going to be using an SSD for this system, just because I had a pile of them, and it just makes things so much easier. So for this, we just lay it there like that. Gonna need some fine screws, 3 millimeters. I do have a 36 gig Western Digital Raptor drive, so an old school 10,000 RPM drive that I might stick in here at some point. But this case actually is not really conducive to 3.5-inch drives, so I would really like to show it off, because those are very cool drives. They have the big aluminum heat sinks around the edge. They also, well, the one I have isn't the coolest version that have the window. There was some versions of those that had a window showing off the read and write head as it actuated, but I don't have one of those. But the SSD will be nice, nice and quick. It will at least know that the SSD won't be the bottleneck of this system. So what I've unfortunately found is that 2x AGP is most likely going to be our main bottleneck for this system. Okay. So, tuck this away. We're not going to use that. Oh, we'll plug in this RGB strip thing. See how that looks when that gets lit up later. Okay. Next thing I want to do is install some front fans. This case panel just snaps off. Oh, that's stupid. So the RGB thing is kind of in the way here. Alright, let's see how we can finagle this thing around. Alright, I'm not going to be able to get it any closer, but it's good enough. These fans are just some blue LED fans. They're kind of appropriate for an early 2000s build. Everyone was really into blue LEDs back then. We did have some other options, but I don't know, there was something about the blue LEDs that everyone seemed to really like. Kind of orient that like that. Other one like the same way. Okay, so now that I see both the fans fit where I want them, I'm going to go put all the screws in. I'm going to slide this one down just a little. And these fans I had totally disassembled and lubricated and cleaned. I think both of them had been in a computer case with a smoker at some point, and they're pretty nasty. This one you can still see like the glue that holds in the LED is a little bit yellowed, but you're not gonna notice that when the system's powered up. Okay. Alright, so they're all good to go. Put the fan filter on. Snap this front panel back on, which you can't really see. Alright, hold your ears. Okay. feed that through there. Okay, I've got all our Molexes nice and situated. I'm going to move to the motherboard next. Okay, so we got an I/O shield. I wish I had a plain metal one for this, but this is okay. This one's all color-coded and whatnot and has punch-outs for other options, but the P2B-D had very little in the way of additional bonus I/O, at least this version of the board that I have. Okay, gonna put our motherboard in next. Alright, so just want to make sure that you don't squish these little tabs the wrong way. Okay, they're both on the outside of the PS2 ports. This one has a nice little notch in that center pin that helps you align everything. So this is good to go. Put all our screws in. So I will say that after I resolved all the issues, or started to resolve the issues, well, yeah, after I got the RAM voltage figured out and a good video card installed, the system's been very stable. I've basically been using it for 2 days straight, and the only times it's locked up is when I was overclocking the video card, and when the video card just went too far, it locked up, which is not surprising. So I got a bad screw. As we'll see in a minute, this Quadro is basically a very underclocked video card, and so there was a lot of headroom. I was really surprised when I started playing around with this video card. So there's some good video card stuff coming up, so I'll be ending GPU June with a bang. I really was hoping to get an ATI, either 9700 Pro or 9800 Pro to work in this, because that, I don't know, it's a faster card. They're both faster cards, and they draw a little bit less power. The FX1000 or nVidia FX5800, very power hungry, very hot video cards. So I was hoping to go with something else, but this will work. All right, so let's pull this one out. Whoa. Oof, I think this one was cross-threaded. Come on, Lee and Lee. You're supposed to be better than that. Look at that. I don't know if it shows up. The thumb screw is bent over. All right. So for now, I'm just gonna dangle this switch out the back. This is gonna be a wiring mess. I think I'm just gonna get the system together today, and put together like as one complete system, and then I'll come back and fix the wiring another day because it's gonna require some finagling. I mean, this thing, all these ketchup and mustards that we have in here are just ugh. So I want to get that resolved. I don't want to look at that when I see this system. Quadro, again, you know, it's a nice looking card. It was really nasty. I did a lot of cleaning. I lubricated the fan. Basically, you can take all this stuff apart, take the fan off, open up the back, and lubricate behind the card. I also put new thermal paste on there, so it's hopefully running better than it originally did. But I have reason to believe that it's still running pretty darn hot. Which we'll get to in a second. Okay. That and that and that and that. Okay. While I'm here, let me throw in my USB card. And then the last thing I want to do is put in a top fan. The RAM did get hot, surprisingly. I've never really experienced PC 133 get hot before, but this whole area was kind of hot. So I have one more blue LED fan, and this one, it was indeed cleaned, but it doesn't quite look like it. This one was really, really gross. Yes, I probably should have just bought a new fan. Well, let's put this in, see how it goes. I might wind up coming back and replacing this with a 140 millimeter fan, so that it can sit down more. So it's not really super easy to see here. Yes, I am a professional, folks. Here we go. So basically, if I used a 140 fan, I could bring it down a little bit farther. I don't know. It might not make much of a difference. Maybe stick it right around here. Yeah, I like that spot. There. Okay. So this one we can attach to the back. There's a real fan header here somewhere. There it is. Oops, sorry. All right. I'll route the power cable. Luckily, this case has a pretty big opening right here. A lot of cases only have really small openings up here for the CPU power connector, but this one has one that's big enough to get the 20 pin through there, so that's useful. Okay. Alright, now we need to get a Molex up there. There we go. Look at this. Cable management. I'm just going to use this extra. This was to run to like a front panel connector or something. Can use it to sort of tie up these cables a little bit. Like I said, this is temporary. I'll come back and wire it up nicer at some point. Okay. Got that and that and that. That's all in. Oh, I'm going to need another Molex for the SA serial ATA converter. Okay, I think we can put the top thing back on. And up my SATA cable while I'm here. Oh, I guess I'll put it through the real thing. Real grommets. Very fancy. Okay. Back, and let's see how we want to do this. So one of the problems with Molex connectors is they're kind of weak, and a lot of times they don't have great connections, and so while you theoretically could daisy chain a whole bunch of these things together, each one tends to add a little bit of resistance, and so I really try to avoid doing that if possible, which is one of the reasons I use the Corsair modular power supply, because I could basically connect as many of these modular cables for Molexes up as we need it. Come around this way with this. So I'm going to have one dedicated for the video card. Okay, so we'll connect this fan all the way back here. Connect the serial ATA converter to there, and then we'll connect the other fan here. Okay, and then put this one through for the video card. This, tuck that down in there. Don't need this yet. Tuck that down in there. Oh, we need these. These are the motherboard power switch. Oh, okay, so look, this actually wound up working kind of nicely and allows me to get rid of one Molex to Berg connector. So we can take this off and connect the video card up this way. Then connect this right to the serial ATA converter. Okay. Yeah, that'll look a little nicer. Okay, so hard drive lid, I believe the positive for the hard drive lid is over on this side, and the power switch is here. It's not polar, so it doesn't matter. So this still looks ugly right here, but I will have resolved that at some point. Yeah, I don't have the stuff to do that right now, but it will be. Okay, so let's get rid of this Berg converter. And let's do a power test. Electric, that would help. Okay, got post, and we're good to go. All right, so let me grab the side panel. I really gotta clean this. It's pretty gross. All right, 1 second. Where did I put my window? Oh, my workshop is such a mess. That's why I really needed um, get this system done. Darn it. Alright, well, I'll have to take this back off at some point. Alright, let's just stick that on there. Oh, and our RGBs are going. RGB LEDs. Oh, we're missing a captive thumb screw on this case. That happens when you get a used computer case. Alright, let me shut the lights off. Hold on to your eyes. I'm going to move the camera. Well, this isn't quite the B-roll shots like you see on the high-end YouTube channels. But I'll try to post some pictures later on. Alright, well, something. Okay, we got a boot disk failure because I forgot to connect the serial ATA cable. So let's run this around. Alright, so RAM's counting up. Come on, primary master. Oh, I connected it to the wrong thing. It'll be alright. Okay, so the arrangement of my ports is going to be a little bit different because it was not in the exact same slot, but there we go. Let's try to get rid of some of that glare. I'm moving the camera again. Alright, so one of the issues I ran into with this thing was the driver versions. I wound up using the 9371s, and then I could use the Coolbits hack, Coolbits registry thing to unlock the overclocking settings in nVidia control panel. And every time you do this, you gotta scroll down, say I accept. Excuse me. So one of the things I wanted to point out was how this software is detecting the speed of the video card. This GPU clock setting is correct for this video card, but the memory speed is not. So I still haven't quite figured out why that isn't correct. So if we go, oh, not to here, we want to go to here. So if we look at the GPU database and tech power up, we can see the FX1000 video card is basically, it's the same GPU as in the FX5800 and the FX5800 Ultra, but the FX1000 Quadro is clocked way lower. So 300 megahertz memory clock and GPU clock, which is incredibly low. The base 5800 is at 400 and 400. So the numbers that we see here are wrong. Basically, it seems like the software is detecting it at 4 times of what it's supposed to be for the memory clock. I don't know why that is. You know, like I said, I'm still trying to troubleshoot this. My Windows XP install seems to be a little bit flaky. I haven't been able to get 3D Mark 2003 going, and GPU-Z doesn't work in here. When I run, what's this software called? Probably deleted it. There's the old overclocking software that you could run on systems, and it basically locks up the system. The video artifacts and everything locks up eventually. So there's some sort of compatibility issue there. But what I've seen is we can crank this thing all the way up to about I think I was doing about 480. Let's do 477 and 1700, I think. I haven't played with the memory even further. I have a feeling it would go further. But so that's where we're testing at. It's gonna make us confirm again. Let me say accept. We'll leave this open here, and let's run 3D Mark 2001. And I'm really sorry about this monitor setup. I need to switch over to my new streaming PC and get my video capture all corrected. Let's change this, get rid of that. Oh, no. Yeah, we want that, we want that. We don't want that. And of course, now that we're on camera, it'll probably lock up, but so far it's always run really well. So while this is running, let's look back at some of the benchmark results that I've gotten. So I was able. So one thing I wanted to show real quick. So these 2 points right here are from the CPU clocked at 950 megahertz. So this is at the 100 megahertz frontside bus. The other thing I want to point out is that this axis is way wrong. As a scientist, it really bothers me to plot things with axes condensed like this. But I wanted to show that there are differences. They're very small. But with something like 3D Mark, where we're talking about sort of an arbitrary value, I'm not so concerned about the linearity and misrepresentation of data. But yeah, this is essentially misrepresented data. This is all, scaled properly. It's just we're missing a whole lot of relative information. But anyway, so at 950 megahertz versus 1.26, you can see we get a huge increase in the 3D Mark 2001 score from the TI 4600. I was able to get the TI 4600 to work for a little while, but it was getting a lot of corrupted textures and stuff like that, so it just did not tolerate the AGP bus overclock. But also the other thing you can see is how much faster the 9700 Pro was. on the 950 megahertz CPU speed compared to the TI 4600. So we're looking at like, what, 60 something, 67 32 versus 7959. So the 9700 Pro is a much faster card than the TI 4600. And when we compare the TI 4600 to the Quadro, you can see that there's a pretty sharp drop off. But over the past couple days and the testing I've been doing, I've played with overclocking this thing. And so here's the setting that we're running right now, the 476 with the 1700 megahertz memory. And you can see we've gone from 7710 up to 8278, which, this is faster than the TI 4600. The TI 4600 was, we finally, after all this overclocking, made the FX1000 faster than the TI 4600. So there's still the potential, I think, when you convert the Quadro back into a regular GeForce, that it does pick up a little bit of gaming performance, but I don't think it would be, like earth-shattering. But it's interesting to see, like, just some really basic overclocking. You can increase the speeds on this thing a lot. The memory, you can see there's 7993 versus 8057, just by increasing the memory frequency a little bit, up to 8082. So we get some nice little improvements. And like I said, I haven't done any other changes on here because the software's been a little bit buggy for me. I'm pretty certain that the hardware is really stable. The one thing I want to point out is, these are all averages of 3 runs, and I also calculated the standard deviation, or had Google Sheets calculate the standard deviation for me. And so when I started getting up around 500 megahertz core, we see our standard deviation start to increase a lot. And I think that this CPU or this GPU was one of the first to sort of excuse me. Sorry, 1 second. This GPU is one of the first to sense when it was starting to overheat. And so I think this is indicative of the CPU or the GPU starting to overheat a little bit. So it was sort of thermal throttling itself during the runs, and that's why we see more variability. But when I clocked the core back down to like 476, that variability decreased a lot. And so I think this 476 is kind of a stable core clock, considering the what we're, this is the original heatsink from this thing, so it's not going to be the best cooler out there. But going up from 300 megahertz to 476 megahertz, that's a pretty substantial increase, and I think it's ultimately going to be nice and stable. So finish this. Let's see where this run finishes off, and you can see we don't have any artifacting or anything at this point. And I never really saw any artifacting, so that gives me more confidence that I can probably get the memory speed up a little bit more. Generally, when I experienced instability, it was just a hard lock. So, yeah, this system still has a little bit of room for tweaking, but did some nice GPU testing on this, and it was fun to sort of actually get to some GPU testing during GPU June. Just want to point out this is a USB mouse, but it's got a ball in it. 8797. So where does that put us? If we go back to this. Whoa, that was a pretty substantial increase. Guess the thing 8797. What? Wow. Okay. I don't know what the heck happened there, but that was a huge increase. Um, well, there's a mystery to end things on. Oh, jeez. Aren't computers fun? So obviously I need to do some more testing on this thing to figure out um, why the this is so much higher than I had been testing with earlier. Um, all right, whatever. Um, all right, so I'm gonna end this here. The system's built. I'm really happy that it's together finally. I've been wanting to do this system for a really long time, and so now I can get this pile of stuff out of the way. I'm probably going to be streaming rebuilding a Mac Plus that I'm in the process of restoring, and all the parts are done. I just need to rebuild it. So I'll probably be doing that at some point this weekend. I do want to thank everyone that's gotten subscribed lately. It's really cool to have a new bunch of people. Also got hit 70 subscribers. I'm still really surprised that there's that many of you out there that want to see this kind of stuff, but I appreciate you watching. I'm also going to have more PC stuff happening in the near future. I have a whole lot of PC projects, so whether you like Mac stuff or you like PC stuff, I have projects for everyone. So if this is your first time tuning in, thank you. If this is your returning viewer, thank you also. Oh, the other thing I wanted to point out is I don't know which video card or which sound card to put into this system. So I have two options. I have an an REL Vortex 2, or I have a Sound Blast or Audigy. So leave a comment. Let me know which sound card do you think would be a better match for this system. REL Vortex 2 or Sound Blast or Audigy. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. And I look forward to talking with you more online.